Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. James looked at Lily, his thoughts momentarily drifting as the sound of the city below filled the quiet night air. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He wasn't supposed to be drawn to her, not like this. He had hired her for a job, not to make a genuine connection, but there was something about her that felt right. Lily, on the other hand, stood there, her heart racing slightly as she tried to make sense of the feelings stirring inside her. She was here for a job, and she couldn't afford to let anything complicate that. But still, there was something magnetic about James, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. She knew she had to stay focused, but the more she spent time with him, the harder it became. Now, back to their daily routine, Lily would find herself falling deeper into the web of deception, but also into a connection she never expected. As the days went by, the line between their pretend relationship and real emotions started to blur. And as for James, he found himself relying more and more on Lily, not just as a maid or a girlfriend, but as someone who seemed to understand him in ways no one else did. As the days passed, Lily continued to play her role, still trying to navigate the world of high society, feeling like an outsider in James's luxurious penthouse. The city skyline outside the window was a constant reminder of how far she was from the life she had once known. Every day felt like a new challenge, but there was something oddly comforting about the routine. She would wake up early, prepare breakfast for James, and then go about her day as his girlfriend. It wasn't the most glamorous life, but it was better than her previous one. However, deep down, Lily knew she had to keep up the charade. She didn't want to get too attached to the idea of this fake relationship, but the more time she spent with James, the more difficult that became. James, for his part, was finding it harder to stick to the original plan. He had hired Lily to be nothing more than a convenient solution to his family's demands, but as the days went by, he couldn't ignore the way she made him feel. Her clumsiness, which had initially irritated him, had begun to charm him in ways he never expected. There was an authenticity to her, something genuine that he couldn't quite find in the polished women his family had tried to set him up with. Every time they spent time together, whether it was at one of his business events or just a quiet evening at home, he found himself opening up to her in ways he hadn't with anyone else. One evening, after a long day filled with business meetings and family pressures, James and Lily sat together on the balcony, the cool breeze of the night air brushing against their faces. The city lights flickered below them, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. James turned to her, his voice soft. "You know, I never thought this would work," he said, the words hanging in the air. "The fake relationship, I mean." Lily looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. She had gotten used to the idea of being just his pretend girlfriend, but now she wasn't so sure. "I didn't either," Lily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "But here we are." She tried to laugh it off, but the truth was, she had begun to care about James in a way she hadn't intended. She wasn't sure if it was the circumstances or if it was real, but there was no denying that something had shifted between them. James gave her a small smile, his eyes reflecting the city lights. "You're not like anyone I've ever met," he said, his voice quieter now. "I never thought I'd be sitting here like this with someone who just gets it." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. She couldn't let herself get too comfortable with this new dynamic. This was still a job for her, nothing more. The next day, James had to attend a high-profile charity event that his family had arranged. He needed Lily to accompany him as his girlfriend, and although she had gotten used to the routine, the thought of attending such a big event made her nervous. She had never been in a crowd of that magnitude, surrounded by wealthy, influential people. But she had promised James, and she would keep her word. At the event, Lily felt out of place, her usual awkwardness amplified by the glitzy surroundings. The guests, dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits, glanced at her with polite curiosity, but none of them made an effort to engage. James, however, was by her side the entire time, guiding her through the event, introducing her as his girlfriend. His protective demeanor only made her feel more like an imposter. As the night went on, Lily began to loosen up a little, especially when she found herself talking to one of the other guests, a woman named Sarah, who was more than willing to chat with her. The conversation drifted from trivial topics to more personal ones, and Lily found herself talking about her dreams of becoming a professional artist, a passion she had kept hidden for years. She hadn't planned to share so much with Sarah, but it felt good to finally talk about something real. Meanwhile, James was busy networking with some of his business associates, but his gaze kept drifting back to Lily. He watched as she interacted with Sarah, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke about her art. There was something about her that made everything feel so much more genuine. For the first time in a long while, James felt like he was seeing the real Lily, the woman behind the clumsy facade. By the end of the night, as they were leaving the event, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between them. She had learned more about herself through her conversations with Sarah, and James had seen a different side of her, one that wasn't just the fake girlfriend he had hired. For the first time, she wasn't sure where the line between the real and the fake began or ended. As they left the venue, James turned to her, his expression serious. "Lily," he said, his voice softer than before, "I know we started this as just a contract, but I don't know, something's different now." Lily's heart raced, but she didn't know how to respond. She had promised herself she wouldn't let this become more than it was, but it was getting harder to tell what she truly wanted. Was this a contract, or was it something more? James's words lingered in the air as they walked to the car, and for the first time, Lily felt uncertain about where they were headed. As the days passed, James and Lily continued their complicated routine. The line between their fake relationship and real emotions became more and more blurred, especially after the charity event. James couldn't deny that his feelings for Lily were changing. He couldn't tell if it was because of the way she spoke so freely about her dreams, or the way she laughed so easily. But something about her felt genuine, like she was the only person in his life who wasn't trying to impress him. But Lily still kept her distance. She reminded herself every day that this was temporary, that she was only playing a part to help James, nothing more. Still, when he looked at her in that way, his eyes soft and kind, it was hard not to feel something. One evening, as they were sitting together after dinner, the conversation took a turn. They were talking about their pasts when James asked, "Lily, what is it that you really want? I know you have your art, but what else?" It was a question she hadn't expected, and it caught her off guard. For a moment, she didn't know how to answer. Her life had been so full of struggle that she had stopped thinking about her real dreams. She had focused only on surviving. But now, with James asking, something inside her stirred. I don't know," she replied, feeling vulnerable. "I guess I just want to be able to do what I love without worrying about surviving." It was a simple answer, but it felt honest. James listened carefully, and for the first time in a long while, she felt heard. He reached across the table, gently placing his hand on hers. "You deserve to do what you love, Lily," James said softly. "You shouldn't have to worry about anything else." His words made her heart race, but she quickly pulled her hand away, feeling a sudden rush of emotions. She couldn't let herself get attached to him. This was still a contract, a deal they had made, nothing more. The next day, things took an unexpected turn. James had a business trip to a nearby city, and he asked Lily to come along, insisting that she be there to help with the image they had created. It was a high-profile event, and his family would be attending. As much as she wanted to refuse, she knew she couldn't. This was part of the deal. They arrived at the venue, a luxurious hotel ballroom filled with influential people. Lily felt out of place once again, her simple dress a stark contrast to the elegant gowns around her. But this time, something was different. As James introduced her to various people, his arm around her waist, she realized that this wasn't just a game anymore. She wasn't just playing a role, she was part of something bigger, something real. She tried to shake off the feeling, but the more time she spent with him, the harder it became to ignore the chemistry between them. During the event, things got chaotic. James had to handle several business deals at once, and Lily found herself alone for a moment in the corner of the room. That was when a woman came up to her. She had a familiar face, someone from James's past. The woman was clearly a rival, her gaze sharp as she looked Lily up and down. "So, you're the new girlfriend, huh?" the woman said with a smirk. "I hope you know what you're getting into. James doesn't keep women around for long." Lily felt a wave of unease wash over her, but she held her ground. She had heard rumors about James's past relationships, but she refused to let this woman intimidate her. "I know exactly what I'm getting into," Lily said, her voice steady. "I'm here for James, and that's all that matters." The woman gave her a cold smile before walking away, and Lily let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. She could feel the tension building inside her. This wasn't just about being a girlfriend anymore. This was about something deeper, something she hadn't planned for. As the night went on, Lily found herself alone again, but this time, it wasn't because she was pushed aside. It was because she chose to step back and let James handle his business. She wasn't just his fake girlfriend anymore, she was becoming a part of his life, and it terrified her. When the event finally ended, James joined her on the balcony, the cool night air brushing past them. He looked at her, his expression softer than usual. "I don't know what's going on between us, Lily," he admitted, his voice low. "But I can't deny that I'm starting to care about you. And I don't think I can keep pretending anymore." Lily's heart skipped a beat, but she quickly regained her composure. "James, we agreed on this. It's just a deal, nothing more." She wanted to say more, but the words wouldn't come. The connection between them was undeniable, but she couldn't let herself fall for him, not when everything was so uncertain. "I know," James said, his voice tinged with regret. "But it's hard not to feel something for you." He reached for her hand, and for a moment, Lily didn't pull away. She knew this wasn't just a simple contract anymore. It had become something far more complicated. As they stood there, under the stars, both of them knew their lives were changing. But neither of them knew what the future held, or how far they were willing to go to find out. The next few days passed in a whirlwind. James and Lily continued their delicate balancing act, both trying to maintain the illusion of a perfect fake relationship while grappling with their growing, undeniable feelings for each other. But the more time they spent together, the harder it became to keep pretending. Every moment they shared, every glance, every conversation that seemed to last longer than it should, blurred the lines between what was real and what was not. James found himself distracted, his mind wandering back to Lily, even in the middle of important meetings. He had never been so affected by anyone, let alone someone he had hired for a job. And Lily? She felt it too. Despite her resolve to keep things professional, her heart skipped every time he looked at her a little too long, or smiled in that way that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. One afternoon, James asked Lily to join him for a lunch meeting with a potential business partner at a restaurant that was even more high-end than usual. Lily hesitated, not sure how to behave in a setting like that. She was a waitress by trade, not someone accustomed to fine dining or business deals. But James insisted, saying it was important for them to maintain the illusion of a committed relationship, so they had to play the part. When they arrived at the restaurant, Lily felt out of place. The waiters in crisp uniforms, the soft hum of quiet conversations, the polished surfaces, it was all so unfamiliar to her. She felt like everyone was watching them, scrutinizing every move she made. James noticed her discomfort immediately. As they sat down, he leaned over, his voice gentle. "You're doing fine," he said. "Just be yourself." His words, though meant to reassure her, made her feel even more exposed. She didn't know if she was ready to be herself in a world so far removed from her own. The business meeting went smoothly, but as the conversation turned to corporate strategy and investments, Lily found herself tuning out, her thoughts drifting. She wasn't interested in the details of the deal, but rather in how James carried himself, confident, composed, and yet there was a subtle vulnerability in his eyes whenever they locked with hers. During a brief break in the conversation, he glanced over at her, catching her eye. For a split second, their connection felt so real, it almost took her breath away. She quickly turned her gaze back to the menu, avoiding his eyes. As the meeting ended and they stood to leave, James was quiet for a moment, deep in thought. Then he turned to Lily, his voice softer than before. "I know this is all a lot to ask," he said, "and I never imagined it would be like this. But I'm grateful for you for everything." Lily smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She didn't know how to respond. This was supposed to be a temporary arrangement, a business decision. It wasn't supposed to be real. And yet, every time he spoke to her like that, it became harder to pretend. Back at the penthouse, Lily sat on the couch thinking about the events of the day. James's words lingered in her mind. "Grateful for you." She couldn't help but wonder if he meant more than he was letting on. It was clear to her now that the lines between fake and real had become so blurred that neither of them could tell where one ended and the other began. Later that night, as they sat together on the balcony again, the city lights twinkling beneath them, James seemed different. There was an intensity in his gaze as he looked at her, something that hadn't been there before. Lily felt her heart race, but she kept her composure, unwilling to let herself become too attached. "Lily," James began, his voice low. "I don't know how to explain this, but I'm starting to think this thing between us could be more than just a contract. I'm not sure what's happening, but I don't want it to stop. I don't want to let you go." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She turned her face away, her heart pounding. She had known this moment was coming, but hearing it out loud made everything so much more real. She had spent so much time convincing herself that this was just a job, that it was just a temporary arrangement. But now, with his words hanging in the air, she realized how deeply she had become invested in him. "James," she whispered, struggling to keep her voice steady. "We agreed. This was just for the contract. Nothing more." But even as she said the words, she knew she didn't believe them. She had been lying to herself, trying to convince herself that this was just a business deal, when in reality, she had already crossed the line into something much more complicated. James didn't say anything for a long time. He simply sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the skyline. It was clear that neither of them knew what came next, but one thing was certain: this fake relationship was about to become something neither of them could easily walk away from. As the night drew to a close, Lily felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her: confusion, fear, but also something that felt like hope. Could it be possible that the two of them had found something real in all the pretense? She wasn't sure, but she couldn't deny the pull between them any longer. For the first time since she had stepped into James's world, Lily wasn't so sure where their journey would lead, but she knew one thing for certain: whatever happened, things were never going to be the same again. The following days were a mix of uncertainty and quiet tension. Lily continued to play the role she had agreed to, but her feelings for James were growing stronger with each passing moment. The boundaries between their fake relationship and something more real had completely blurred, and she could no longer pretend that this was just a contract. James had been distant, but she could see the conflict in his eyes when he looked at her, as if he too was starting to realize that things between them were changing. The line between what was real and what was not had completely dissolved. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the city lights, James turned to her, his gaze serious. "Lily," he said softly, "I can't keep pretending like this. I thought this was just about getting my family off my back, but now it's different. I care about you more than I should." The words hung in the air, and Lily's heart skipped a beat. She had known for a while now that James was feeling something deeper, but hearing him say it out loud made everything so much more real. For a moment, Lily didn't know how to respond. Her chest tightened as she looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt. "James, we agreed this was a temporary arrangement. I can't just ignore that. This was a business deal." Her voice wavered, but she tried to stay firm. She couldn't let herself fall for him, not when everything had been built on lies and pretense. James reached for her hand, his touch gentle, almost apologetic. "I know," he said quietly, "but I've never felt like this about anyone. I don't know how this happened, but it has. And I can't pretend anymore." Lily's heart raced at his words, and for a moment she wanted to give in, to let herself fall into this feeling that had been growing between them. But she pulled away, shaking her head. "I can't do this, James," she said, her voice low and shaky. "I can't let myself fall for you. This isn't real. We're pretending. I don't know if I can trust that this is anything more than just a business deal." Her words stung, even though they were the truth. She had promised herself she wouldn't get too attached, but the way James looked at her, the way he cared for her, it was hard not to feel something. James stood up, walking to the edge of the balcony, his hands gripping the railing as he looked out over the city. He didn't say anything for a long time, but Lily could feel the weight of his silence. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to do with all of this. I never planned for any of this, but I can't just walk away from you, Lily." Lily looked down, trying to keep her emotions in check. "I can't be the person who's just here for a role," she whispered. "I'm not just some actress in your life, James. I need something real. I can't keep pretending." James turned to face her, his expression conflicted. "I don't know how to make this right," he said, his voice soft. "But I want to try. I know we started this as a contract, but somewhere along the way it became something more. I just need you to see that." The air between them was thick with unsaid words and unspoken feelings. Lily felt her heart aching as she looked at him, torn between what she knew was right and the overwhelming connection she felt to him. She had been so determined to keep her distance, to hold on to the illusion of control. But the truth was, she couldn't fight it anymore. She didn't know where this would lead, but she knew she couldn't walk away from James, not now. In that moment, Lily realized that the contract they had signed, the deal they had made, no longer mattered. The feelings between them had become real, and no matter how hard she tried to deny it, she was falling for him, just as much as he was falling for her. As the night went on, James and Lily shared a quiet, intimate dinner together, the tension between them now replaced with a sense of calm. They didn't need to speak about what had just happened. The connection between them was undeniable, and in that moment, they both understood what the future might hold. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was going to be real. And so, as they sat there, just the two of them, James reached across the table and took Lily's hand in his. "Let's see where this goes," he said, his voice steady. "Together." Lily looked at him, her heart swelling with emotions she had tried so hard to keep hidden. Maybe this was the beginning of something real after all. And for the first time since she had walked into his world, Lily allowed herself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, the life she had always dreamed of wasn't as far away as she had once believed. The days that followed felt different. James and Lily had finally admitted to themselves what they had been avoiding for so long. The connection between them was real. It wasn't just a business deal anymore, and neither of them could pretend otherwise. But as the days went by, Lily began to feel the weight of her own decisions, the lines of their relationship blurring more and more. She had promised herself that she wouldn't get emotionally involved, but now it was hard to tell where she ended and James began. She tried to keep her focus on the job at hand, but every moment with him only made it harder to deny her feelings. James, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about Lily. His emotions for her had become so much more than just a fake relationship. He had known from the beginning that it would be a temporary arrangement, but now he found himself wondering if he could live without her. He had never expected this to happen. He had hired her to play a role, but somewhere along the way, she had become indispensable to him. He could no longer imagine his life without her by his side. One evening, as they sat together on the couch after dinner, James reached out and took Lily's hand in his. He looked at her with a softness in his eyes that made her heart race. "Lily," he said quietly, "I know we started this as a contract, but I can't help how I feel. I want more than just a deal. I want you, for real. Gun good." His words took her by surprise. She had been waiting for this moment, but now that it had arrived, she wasn't sure how to react. She had always told herself to keep her distance, to keep the professional facade in place. But James's confession made her heart ache with the truth she had been trying to avoid. "James," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "I've never done anything like this before. I didn't expect to fall for you." She looked down at their joined hands, trying to steady her breath. "I told myself this was just temporary, but now I'm not sure what I want anymore." James squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing over her skin gently. "You don't have to have it all figured out right now," he said softly. "I just need you to know that this is real for me. I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to pretend." For a moment there was silence between them. Lily could feel the intensity of the moment, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Her mind raced with conflicting emotions. She had never imagined herself falling for someone like James, someone so out of her league, so far removed from the life she had known. And yet, here they were. "I'm scared," Lily finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of what this could mean. What if it doesn't work out? What if we end up hurting each other?" James leaned in, his gaze never leaving hers. "I can't promise that it will always be easy, but I promise that I'll try. I'm not asking for perfection, just for a chance to make this work. I want to build something real with you, Lily." Lily's heart was pounding in her chest. She had spent so long running from the possibility of love, afraid to let anyone in. But with James, it was different. She could feel the sincerity in his words, in his touch. She could feel the way he was looking at her, as though he saw her not just as the maid, not just as a pretend girlfriend, but as the woman she was, the woman she was becoming. For the first time in a long while, Lily allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a future for them. She didn't know what it would look like, or how they would navigate the challenges ahead, but she knew that she couldn't let fear keep her from something real. "Okay," she whispered, her voice steady now. "Let's try. Let's see where this goes." James's face broke into a smile, the relief evident in his eyes. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, everything seemed to fall into place. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Lily felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As they sat together, wrapped in each other's arms, both of them knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. No more pretending, no more contracts. Just two people, willing to take a chance on love. The next day, Lily woke up feeling lighter than she had in weeks. It wasn't just the weight of the contract that had been lifted, it was the weight of her own fears, her own doubts. She was ready for what came next, ready to build something real with James. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what the future might hold. She walked into the living room where James was waiting, and smiled. "So," she said playfully, "what's next for us?" James looked up, his eyes filled with warmth, and replied, "Whatever we make of it." And in that moment, Lily realized that the future was wide open, full of possibilities, and she was ready to face it together with James. In the days that followed, James and Lily found themselves growing even closer. They spent more time together, navigating this new, uncharted territory of being together, truly together, without the pretense of a contract or a fake relationship. The boundaries that once separated them had almost completely disappeared, leaving only the raw, real connection between them. Yet, despite their deepening bond, there was an undercurrent of tension in the air. The weight of the secret that still hung over them, the original reason they had come together, was something neither of them could forget. James had been getting more pressure from his family. The business deal that had been the catalyst for hiring Lily was still looming, and his family kept insisting that he marry the woman they had chosen for him. The situation was getting complicated, and James knew it. The stakes were higher than ever before, and he could feel the pressure building. He had no choice but to face his family again soon, but this time, it was different. He couldn't keep lying to them. He couldn't keep hiding his feelings for Lily. One evening, as they sat in his office, James turned to Lily with a serious expression. "I have to go to the family dinner tomorrow," he said quietly. "They're going to keep pushing for this marriage, and I can't keep pretending it's not happening. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I need to tell them the truth." Lily looked at him, concern creeping into her heart. She had always known this moment would come, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to say. "James, are you sure?" Lily asked softly. "You know what this could mean for everything, your family, your business. It's not just about us anymore." James nodded, his jaw clenched. "I know, but I can't keep lying to them. I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not, especially when it's affecting what we have. I want to be honest with them, and with you." The weight of his words hung in the air. Lily could see the conflict in his eyes, the fear of what telling the truth could cost him. She knew that if James told his family the truth, it could change everything, his business, his future, and their relationship. But deep down, she knew he was right. They couldn't keep pretending, not anymore. The night before the family dinner, Lily stayed up late, pacing the floor of the penthouse. She couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that had settled in her chest. She had come to care for James more than she ever thought possible, but now the stakes were higher. What if his family didn't accept her? What if they tried to tear them apart? Lily had never been in a situation like this before. She wasn't prepared to face the kind of scrutiny that would come with being in James's world, especially not with his family so set on controlling his future. As she stood by the window, looking out over the city, she heard James's voice behind her. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Lily turned around, meeting his gaze. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if this doesn't work? What if they never accept me?" James walked over to her, taking her hand in his. "I can't promise it will be easy," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "But I promise I'll stand by you. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. I won't let them take this from us." For the first time in weeks, Lily felt a sense of peace. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew she wasn't alone. James was right. They couldn't control what others thought, but they could control what they did. And as long as they had each other, they could face whatever came next. The next evening, they arrived at the family dinner. It was a grand affair, held at the Montgomery estate, with towering chandeliers and long tables filled with extravagant dishes. The family was already seated, their eyes turning toward James and Lily as they entered. The tension in the room was palpable. James took a deep breath and turned to Lily, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Stay close," he whispered. Lily nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that this was the moment that would decide everything. As they approached the table, James's father stood up, his face stern. "James," he said, his voice cold, "I trust you've made your decision about the marriage." James looked at him, his expression steady. "Actually, I have." The room fell silent, every eye now on James. "I'm not marrying the woman you chose for me," he continued, his voice strong. "I'm in love with someone else." Lily's breath caught in her throat as she looked around the room, expecting the worst. But when she met James's eyes, she saw the determination in them. He wasn't backing down. And in that moment, she knew whatever came next, they would face it together. The silence in the room stretched on, but James didn't falter. "This is Lily," he said, turning toward her with a proud smile. "And she's the person I'm choosing to spend my life with." Quote. The shock in the room was palpable, but Lily stood tall, her heart beating fast as she realized that this was the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. No more pretending, no more hiding. They were finally living their truth. And as James took her hand, leading her away from the table, Lily knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, stronger than ever. The following days were filled with a mix of relief and uncertainty. James had taken a bold step by standing up to his family, declaring his love for Lily, and the truth was finally out. The once pretend relationship was now fully real. But while James had felt the weight lift off his shoulders, Lily was still grappling with the reality of their new situation. She had never imagined that her life would take this turn, and even though she had always hoped for something more than just a job, she hadn't expected it to come with so many complications. The fallout from the dinner was immediate. James's family was furious. His father, especially, didn't understand why James would reject the woman they had carefully selected for him. The pressure was intense, and it seemed like every phone call and every conversation James had only added to the tension. But Lily, for the first time, felt like an outsider in his world. She had spent so much time trying to keep her distance from everything, but now that she was involved in the very heart of James's life, she wasn't sure she was strong enough to handle the scrutiny. James could see the strain on Lily's face, and it bothered him more than he cared to admit. "I know this is hard," he said one evening, sitting down next to her on the couch, "but we're in this together, you and me. We'll figure it out." Lily gave him a small, forced smile. She appreciated his words, but the weight of their situation was heavier than he seemed to realize. "It's not just about us," she replied quietly. "It's everything. Your family, your business. I don't fit into that world. I don't belong." James shook his head. "You belong with me. That's all that matters. We'll face whatever comes, and I'll stand by you. I promise." But despite his reassurances, Lily felt the pressure mounting. She wasn't used to being in the spotlight, and she certainly wasn't accustomed to dealing with people who judged her based on her background. She had always kept to herself, focused on survival and keeping her head down. Now, everything had changed, and she wasn't sure how much more of this world she could handle. Then, just as the tension seemed to reach its peak, an unexpected opportunity appeared. James had invited her to a gala and event for his business partners, a huge networking opportunity. It was a place where the elite gathered to discuss investments, strategies, and connections. Lily knew this wasn't just a party, it was a test. She wasn't sure she was ready for it, but James had asked her to come, and for the first time, she realized she couldn't back down. The night of the gala, Lily felt like a fish out of water. The grand ballroom was filled with influential people, all dressed in luxurious attire, exchanging pleasantries with perfect smiles. She had never felt so out of place, but James stayed by her side, introducing her to people and helping her navigate the overwhelming crowd. Despite the anxiety bubbling inside her, she tried to put on a brave face. At one point, while James was caught in a conversation with an important investor, Lily found herself standing alone, surrounded by people who seemed to glance at her with curiosity. Her heart raced, and she couldn't help but feel like everyone was silently judging her. Just when she thought she couldn't take the pressure anymore, a woman approached her. She was tall, elegant, with a sharp look that seemed to pierce right through Lily. "You must be the famous Lily," the woman said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "James has been talking about you quite a lot lately. I must say I'm surprised he's chosen someone like you." Lily stood tall, trying to maintain her composure. She wasn't going to let anyone push her around, not here, not now. "And who might you be?" she asked, her voice steady but firm. The woman's smile faltered for just a second before she replied, "I'm his cousin Victoria. You'll find that James has always had a very particular taste in women. I hope you live up to his expectations." The subtle jab didn't escape Lily's notice, and for a moment she felt a wave of anger rising in her chest. But she kept her cool, remembering what James had said about standing by her. "I'm exactly who I am, and I'm not trying to live up to anyone's expectations but my own," Lily replied, her voice calm yet confident. Victoria's eyes flickered with surprise at her response, but she quickly regained her composure. "Well, I'll leave you to it. Just remember, James comes from a world that expects perfection. Don't disappoint him." With that, Victoria turned and walked away. Lily felt a mix of frustration and determination surge within her. She wasn't going to let anyone make her feel inferior, least of all someone like Victoria. She wasn't part of this world, and she didn't fit in, but she was here because of her connection to James, and that was something no one could take away. When the evening ended, James found her standing by the window, her gaze distant. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. Lily nodded, though her heart was still heavy. "Yeah," she said softly, "but I think I'm starting to realize something. I don't need to fit into this world. I just need to be here with you." "Guay." James smiled, walking over to her and taking her hand in his. "That's all I need too," he said, his voice sincere. "We don't need anyone else's approval, just ours." And in that moment, Lily realized that no matter what came next, as long as she had James by her side, she could face anything. The weeks that followed were a turning point for both James and Lily. The tensions with James's family continued, but something inside him had shifted. He was no longer willing to bend to their expectations. He wanted to live his life on his own terms, and Lily had become the most important part of that. Together, they faced each challenge that came their way, stronger and more united than ever. James continued to fight for his right to choose his own future, and slowly but surely, his family began to come around. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but he was determined to make things work, not just for his business, but for the woman he loved. Lily, on the other hand, was no longer the woman who had entered his life with uncertainty. She had transformed into someone who knew exactly what she wanted, someone who wasn't afraid to stand up for herself and what she believed in. Every day, she became more confident in her place beside James. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, the city lights casting a warm glow over them, James turned to Lily, his expression soft yet filled with purpose. "Lily," he began, his voice steady, "I know things have been complicated, but I've never been more sure about anything in my life. You are the person I want to be with, not because of some business deal, not because of family pressure, but because of you. I want to build a future with you." Quote. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him. She had always known that this moment was coming, but now that it was here, the weight of his words hit her hard. She had never imagined she would find someone who saw her not just as the maid, the pretended girlfriend, but as the woman she truly was. And now, she realized, she couldn't imagine a life without him. "James, Lily's voice trembled, but she quickly steadied herself. "I've always been afraid of letting myself love someone because I thought it would be too painful. But with you, I feel like I can finally be myself. I don't want to live in fear anymore. I want to be with you too." James smiled, his eyes filled with love as he reached for her hand. "Then let's make this official. No more hiding, no more pretending." He paused for a moment, his expression turning serious, but in the most beautiful way. "Lily, will you marry me?" Lily's breath caught in her throat. The question she had always dreamed of, yet never thought would come, was right in front of her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at James, her heart bursting with emotions she could barely put into words. "Yes," she whispered, her voice filled with sincerity. "Yes, I will marry you." James pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, as if the world could not touch them in that moment. The weight of the past, the uncertainty, the struggles they had both faced, all of it melted away. What was left was love, real and undeniable. As the night stretched on, they made plans for the future, plans that didn't involve pretending or hiding. For the first time, Lily felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. And James, too, knew that he had found something he never thought possible. A love that was real, a love that was worth fighting for. Their journey wasn't over yet. There would be challenges, of course, and obstacles to overcome. But they knew they could face anything as long as they had each other. Together, they would build a life, a love, and a future that was theirs and theirs alone. And so, with a promise to always stand by each other's side, James and Lily stepped into a new chapter of their lives, ready to face whatever the future held, together. The end,